The will had existed for many years now. The decision, however, was only made 2 weeks ago, and the announcement, that only came on Tuesday. Israel's readiness to delegitimize the radical northern branch of the Islamic movement, considered to be linked to the Muslim Brotherhood and thus, by extension, Hamas, was publicly known for a long time. But in recent weeks, the Israeli Security Cabinet has been holding low-key discussions on the move, culminating in a decision taken 2 weeks ago to outlaw the organization. The announcement, however, emerged only on Tuesday, leading to suspicions that the timing was deliberately chosen because of the attacks in Paris last Friday. Whatever the case, it's official. The northern branch of the Islamic movement in Israel is now an illegal organization.
The State of Israel must serve as an example in the battle against Islamic extremism. We saw how it massacred innocent people in Paris, New York, Madrid, and in Israel. The Islamic movement, Hamas, ISIS, and the other terror organizations have a joint platform which brings about terror around the world, as well as the wave of terror in Israel.
Following the decision, the Israeli police distributed cease and desist notices to 17 non-governmental organizations and charities with ties to the northern branch and searched more than a dozen of the group's offices throughout the country. But the move didn't take the leaders of the movement by surprise, and they do not intend to stop their activities.
These measures taken by the Israeli establishment and the banning of the Islamic movement are unjust and unacceptable.
The Israeli Domestic Security Agency recommendations, however, contradict the cabinet's decision. The agency says it does not have any evidence linking the northern branch to terror-related activities. But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has repeatedly voiced his desire to outlaw the organization, decided to push the decision forward anyway, following September's wave of violence. Then, the northern branch of the Islamic movement, led by Sheikh Raed Salah, launched a very successful campaign, inciting and convincing many people in Israel and abroad that Jerusalem wants to change the status quo on the Temple Mount Noble Sanctuary compound, a flashpoint site holy to both Muslims and Jews. Only last month, an Israeli court upheld a previous conviction handed down to Salah and jailed him for 11 months for inciting violence over Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque back in 2007. The cabinet decision infuriated Arab Israeli leaders who declared on a strike effective Thursday.
There is a group called Lehava in Israel. They are committing crimes, hate crimes, racist group, and the cabinet rejected the idea to outlaw this racist and extremist group. This is a pure discrimination, and we will continue to go together with the Islamic movement as an integral part of the Arab leadership in the High Committee of the Arab minority.
With extremist factions from right to left springing up like mushrooms after the rain, the line between legality and illegality is becoming more blurred than ever before. To this mix-up, add politics, which currently seems to be the main factor by which the bar is being set.
And with me right now to discuss these matters are Dr. Avraham Amaheim again, senior lecturer at the Lauder School of Government at the IDC. Good evening. And also Ari Briggs, director of the International Relationship at Regavim. Thank you very much for coming. And also with us, I-24 News diplomatic correspondent. Good evening, Eli Ochenberg. So let's start with you. How come just we went to sleep with one decision and we woke up with another?
Well, this issue has been in hectic debates for many weeks now, and the decision itself was made 2 weeks ago. And as mentioned in the report, some claim that the timing of releasing the official announcement is a bit suspicious. Maybe Israel wanted to join the general global atmosphere at the moment with the Paris attacks. But in either way, there was a severe disagreement between the Israeli police and the Israeli internal security services, the Shin Bet. The Shin Bet argued that such a move will only inflame the atmosphere, inflame the ground even more, that it will push the northern branch of the Islamic movement to go underground, and then they could be less monitored by the Israeli authorities. And they also think that such a very harsh declaration by Israel will eventually strengthen the northern branch and only raise more support for it, while the police said that this is the right thing to do. They need to be illegitimized very quickly, and it cannot be the situation anymore. And we already hear many different political responses for that, but we'll get to that later.
Dr. McGann, I'm asking myself not only why now, because we know about the Islamic movements. We know the Islamic movement. The Islamic movement is a movement in Israel. Shin Bet is monitoring the movement, and it's let's say, a lot of the files on the Shin Bet table belongs to the Islamic movement. And I'm asking myself, first, who knows the Islamic movements outside of Israel? Second, even if Israel wants to put it and to say, okay, we are now joining the international community, look what we are doing, nobody knows who they are. And third, there is some kind of difficult relationship between the Islamic movement and Israel. And I need to understand this relationship.
Well, this is a movement that exists in Israel since 1971. The Islamic movement is the Israeli branch, if you like, of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a global movement, as we know. It has a presence not only in Egypt, of course, and Turkey, and in the West Bank and Gaza, but all across the West. There are more radical branches of the Muslim Brotherhood, more pragmatic branches of the Muslim Brotherhood, but the ideology is there, and it is very, very extreme. This is a jihadist organization. This is a fundamentalist Islamic organization that has as its goal the establishment of an Islamic caliphate instead of the State of Israel, that does not accept the essential legitimacy of the existence of the State of Israel. And then the question becomes, how does a liberal democracy, how does an open society deal with this kind of movement? Where do we draw the boundaries of free speech and political organization and expression? And it is a dilemma, as you've said, and there are different voices in Israel about how best to deal with this.
Explain to the viewers, what is the difference between the southern movement and the northern movement?
The Islamic movement split in 1996, partly on the basis of personalities, partly on the basis of economic interest, partly on the basis of ideology. The northern branch is known for being more aggressive, more radical, less willing to be involved in normal constitutionally accepted politics in Israel, because we have Islamists who are members of Knesset, members of parliament. This branch is more militant, and I think that's why it singled itself out for criticism. Let's put this also in perspective. Israel does not ban the wearing of the hijab, as is done in France in public spaces. Israel does not ban marionettes that have been banned in Switzerland. We have a fairly open public space. Yes, but when you have leaders who are systematically, and let's remember, Raed Salah has adopted this motto, Al-Aqsa is in danger, already in the year 2000. Huge amounts of money flowing from Turkey, from Kuwait, from Qatar to support this movement. In many respects, the Islamic movement, especially the northern branch, today is behaving as Hamas did prior to the First Intifada. Let's remember that Hamas is also the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. Between 1967 and 1987, they did not carry out suicide attacks. They did not engage in outright violence. They invested in dawah, in social welfare activities, they built mosques, they built educational infrastructure, they built health clinics, and so on and so forth. But this provided the infrastructure which then became violent during the First and Second Intifada. And what many people in Israel are wondering and are worried about, that in fact, is particularly the northern branch in Israel, is laying the foundations for violent activity in the future.
I want to take you, Ari, and I need to understand, if we're taking the Islamic movement outside and we're just saying, okay, this organization or this movement is not legitimate in the Israeli sphere, why Lehava, the Jewish extreme organization, right-wing organization, is not also not legitimate, or is legitimate, still legitimate in the Israeli society?
So, Lucy, just before we get there, we're talking about the northern and southern Islamic branches. That's not a geographic split. And I just want to bring in some of the research that we've done in the field itself. The northern Islamic branch has had massive developments in the south, in the Negev, where you're very familiar with what's going on there with the Bedouin expansion and the mosques that have sprung up in these Bedouin, both the encampments and the cities and towns themselves. And you see the teachers, we know what happened in Hura with ISIS and the teachers that were in Hura. We know about the terrorist attack that came from one of the Syrian encampments next to Hura. We know from Regavim's research, we found prayer rooms set up by the northern branch of the Islamic movement inside public schools. So over summer break, they would go in there and set up a little mosque inside these public schools without any approval. So again, it's not geographic, and the radical nature of the northern branch is opposite. It's very different from the southern branch, and that's why we're not seeing the Islamic movement has been cast away and made illegal. We're seeing the militant branch of that movement being made illegal, and the southern branch totally legal and involved in the political process, as we know, part of the United Arab List in today's Knesset.
But you are not asking the question that I asked you about Lava organization, why it's still legitimate in the Israeli society. Why an organization that is inciting against 20% of the population in Israel, is racist against 20% of the population in Israel, against the Arab community, is still legal in Israel?
No. I'm not I don't even know Lava. The only way I know them is what I hear on the news.
You don't want to know them.
And I don't want to know them. That's right, from what I hear. But I know it started off by talking about...
What I'm saying is, being a democracy, be democracy to all your citizens. If it's a democracy, cannot accept incitement by the Arabs, it cannot accept incitement also by the Jews.
For sure, but I don't think that the northern branch of the Islamic movement is only about incitement. I think, as Dr. Magal said, it's what terror. It leads on to, yes, and that is the terror they have established. But
incitement leads to terror.
Correct.
Incitement leads to people going and burning houses in the Dawabshi family, or incitement go and lead people.
One or two or three examples versus thousands of examples.
Terror,
so
you know me. Yeah. I'm saying terror is terror is terror.
Correct.
No matter, murder is a murder is murder. Incitement is incitement is incitement.
But the numbers are important.
No,
they have to be. You can't
but you're talking with me numbers.
Delinquents. You can't take an example of delinquents on one hand and then a movement on the other hand. A terror movement versus a few delinquents that are captured, put in jail, and got...
You're making this sound a little bit romantic.
It's not equivalent.
This is not fair.
You're making it equivalent, and it's not.
It is. It is, because when a person is going and sending 20% of the community in Israel to go and live somewhere else, when a person like that, when the leader is telling me your place is not here, you should not live here, you should not be part of this country, so with all due respect, when he incites against me, that means that he says, if she is me, and he said, and I know the Benzi option is saying we should fight all the Arabs because this is my country. This is incitement, and this is leading people to terror.
If that's what he says, that's wrong, obviously, and that's incitement. And there are rules in Israel against incitement. Making organizations illegal isn't always the answer to stopping incitement and stopping incitement by specific people. This is a movement we're talking about.
So let's join before you're answering me about this subject specifically. Let's join to this conversation Muad AlKhatib, social and political activist, and the son of Raed Salah's deputy in the Islamic Movement, Kamal AlKhatib. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
So let's, Muad, try, just tell me, what is your first reaction and your statement about today getting out of the law?
Well, first of all, please allow me to emphasize two very important facts. And the first is that who's being targeted here is not only the Islamic movement, but the whole Arab community in Israel, which seeks to acquire and obtain and get its deservable rights, and above them, the right in worship and the freedom of entering Al-Aqsa Mosque, which has been severely hindered by the Israeli government. The second fact is that the actual reason behind this banning order is the part that the Islamic movement has been playing in raising awareness towards Al-Aqsa Mosque and Jerusalem as a whole. And the reality that the Israeli government, the extremist right-wing Israeli government led by Netanyahu, which is trying to impose a new reality on the ground by not only allowing settlers to provoke and incite violence inside Al-Aqsa Mosque, but also by preventing Muslims and annexing their right of worship inside the mosque, which is the second holiest mosque in the world.
So, Muad, I want to ask you something. You are talking about Al-Aqsa Mosque. You're talking about this move being against the entire Arab community in Israel, which I have to tell you that I disagree about, but we should not agree about each and everything. But I'm asking you, today I heard one of your comments, and one of the comments coming from the Islamic movement was that even the Shin Bet is saying that that was said by your officials or somebody from the leadership of the Islamic movement, that even the Shin Bet is saying that taking the Islamic movement out and preventing them from acting, this will lead the Islamic movement to be even more violent. And my question is, are you violent?
Well, facts on the ground testify completely against this. The Islamic movement has been always playing by the Israeli rules, and there has been not even one single incident of violence by the Islamic movement. And let me please refer to the first point that you have raised, and that you claim that it's not against the whole Arab community, when this ban order also includes institutions like Hira, which is mainly and only for teaching the Quran, when it also includes Iqra, which is only an institution for developing the Arab education in the Arab community. It gives scholarships to students. It helps them achieve better. It helps them do well in the university as well as school studies. What does it have to do with the political situation and the political approach or attitude of the Islamic movement? When you also target schools here in Kufr Kanna are also targeted. Please let me complete just this sentence.
Yes, of course.
When I teach at the Iqra Psychometry, which just one short sentence, please. When I teach at the Psychometry College of Iqra, that means when I go to teach English to my students, it means I'm doing something against the law. This is insane. This is what the Israeli government is doing.
I'm asking you, and again, it's another question. One of the claims is that the Islamic movement, the northern branch of the Islamic movement, is inciting against Israel, is inciting against the people of Israel, is inciting against Jewish people. And I want your reaction about the recent wave of attacks here in Israel, about people going out and stabbing innocent people, which I know by Islam is forbidden. By Islam, you are not going out and stabbing and killing and murdering innocent people. So I would like to hear your reaction about that.
Well, absolutely. But you mustn't forget that what actually motivated these attacks are Netanyahu's policy and his orders to his police of changing the rules of engagement when he allowed them to shoot on sight anyone who is only suspected. And please, let's emphasize here on suspected, not found guilty of throwing stone or attempting to stab someone. If they suspect that he's going to stab someone, they are allowed to shoot and kill him on sight without trial. Is this the democracy of Israel? And you mustn't also forget that until this day, not even a single piece of evidence was brought against the Islamic movement that proves that it is involved in one way or another in inciting against Jews or against Israel in general. Or otherwise, do you believe that in Israel really, if they incite against Jews, until now Sheikh Ra'ad and Sheikh Kamal would be still free? Would they go free?
I ask myself the same. I just asked this question.
Please just allow me to.
I'm allowing you. We're having a conversation. I just asked myself the same question. Yes.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yes.
You wanted to continue the sentence.
Go ahead. Yeah, so I was saying that if indeed the Islamic movement involved in such violence or incitement or provocation to violence, then how is it possible that they are still walking free? Yoram Cohen, the chairman of Shabak, said that there is no evidence, there is no real concrete proof that the Islamic movement is involved in any terror or inciting to terror. Is this not proof enough for you?
I am surprised that you are using the Shin Bet to just justify or to, protect your claims. This is a little bit weird, but yet I'm not talking.
No, it's not. No, that's not what I meant.
It's a little bit weird. The Islamic movement is that taking, the defense from the Shin Bet is a little bit weird for me. So I am asking again. Just a second. I want to ask a question. I asked at the beginning, and I'm asking again. Are you inciting against killing innocent people? Are you inciting because people are just not being shooting?
Not.
So I'm asking, how come? What is happening? You didn't, or as the Islamic movement, the northern branch, didn't go out against young people, boys and girls. We're talking about boys, 16, 15, 13-year-old boys going and stabbing innocent people. How come you, as a father or as a son, I'm asking you, how can you see that? That's it. This is the only thing that I'm asking. How can you, as a Muslim, not go out and tell this small child, don't do that?
Okay, please pay attention first that you are an interviewer. You are now taking parts, and you must.
I'm not taking parts. I'm just asking a question.
No, you are.
No, I'm just asking a question.
Because you are forgetting the first. Okay, because you are forgetting the first part of the equation, which is who started the killing and the shooting of young people, innocent people. And Hadil Hashlamon is the first example in Khalil, who was killed only because she refused to unveil her face. She was killed and murdered. Why aren't you taking this into consideration?
Because I will tell you. So let me. Usually,
of violence.
Usually these videos. No, usually. Just a second. Just a second. I will let you finish. I swear I will let you finish. But usually these videos,
you didn't allow me to finish.
I will let you finish. I will let you finish. But usually when people are seeing these videos or the viewers are seeing this right now interview, they are seeing only this part. But believe me, just 5 minutes ago, I went out against the organization Lehava. I asked the same questions. I'm asking about people who are burning other people, who are burning Muhammad Abu Khadir, who are burning the Wabshi family. I'm not ignoring that, but I'm also asking about what is happening inside the Muslim, the Arab community. If we are allowing our kids to go out and stab innocent people, this is the only thing that I'm asking you. I am attacking the other side, like I'm going out against the other side. So I'm not coming and paying my personal view. I am just saying and asking the same questions that I'm asking to the Jewish side.
Right. Okay, so again, when you talk about violence, you mustn't forget or ignore who started that violence. When you kill people without any excuse, without justification, unlawfully, you would expect their reaction to be the same. I mean, when someone witnesses his mother or his sister or his cousin killed, what do you expect him to do? I'm not, again, justifying this. I'm just explaining why it happens. No one wants violence. We only wanted, and the Islamic movement only wants that Muslims and Arabs have the right of worship inside the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Nothing more. I mean, and you can see all its activities are all aimed at intensifying or bolstering the Arab presence in Al-Aqsa Mosque. That's it. But the Netanyahu government doesn't want that. Those extremist settlers don't want that. And when they go inside Al-Aqsa against the Muslims and against their will and against the sovereignty of Muslims on Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is basically a mosque, it's a mosque. It's not a synagogue, with all due respect to everyone. It's a mosque. And when you prevent Muslims from entering the mosque and beat them and tear gas them and shoot them and kill some of them because they insist on the right of worship, what do you expect them to do?
Yeah, and you said it best. It's a place of worship. It's the place of God, and no one should be killed or fight for the place of God. AlKhatib, thank you.
Absolutely. No one likes violence, but it's happening because of the policy of Netanyahu and his government, unfortunately. That's the reality.
AlKhatib, as you see, and I let people finish and I let them express their views. And thank you very much for this talk with us. Thank you.
Well, first of all, let me say that I believe, Lucy, you and I both know that the Islamic movement doesn't speak for all of Israeli Arabs. I believe not even the majority of them. It certainly doesn't speak for anybody that cares about equality and coexistence. And we are part of this society. And you have crazies in every society. The question is, how does a society deal with its crazies? That's what distinguishes a healthy society from a pathological one.
Can I just point
Please,
out because we have just our report.
So I think, first of all, your viewers should go online and Google the speeches of Raed Salah and see exactly what he said and what he doesn't say. There's translation to many, many different languages, and they can judge for themselves. The Islamic movement, all extremists, whether Muslims, Christians, Jews, do not speak for us as Israelis. And the only way that we're going to continue to maintain an open society in this regional storm, this kind of earthquake of radicalism around us, is by insisting on democratic and liberal values. And I, just like yourself, condemn any group that incites to violence. Terror is terror is terror. Violence is violence is violence. It doesn't matter who perpetrates it. But we have to, at the same time, defend our democratic and liberal values. Otherwise, we're going to fall into the hands of groups like the Muslim Brotherhood.
Like the Muslim Brotherhood or the Islam. You wanted to react about
Yeah,
this.
I do want to say as well that I would condemn, as Dr. Magan, any type of incitement towards violence to any group of people. So don't get me wrong. I know you asked me before about La'ava, and I didn't come out strongly enough and say that incitement is wrong, incitement to violence is wrong and is condemned. It doesn't matter who does it. But we have to differentiate between what we saw here, and as Dr. Magan said, it was Raed Salah that spoke about the blood libel of Jews and the matzah at the Pesach time, saying us Arabs don't use blood of little kids. I mean, again, trying to spread this blood libel, these are incitement directly of people directly causing what we're seeing here in the violence, and to always hark back to, oh, it was the Jews that started, it was the Jews that started. Al-Aqsa Mosque is a mosque, but the Temple Mount, Haram al-Sharif, as it's called, is a very large area with a lot of space. As you said, a place of God that other people want to worship at. It should be open for freedom of worship. This is a Western ideal. This is even enshrined in the UN Charter. But in Israel, we bend over backwards to not incite. The government makes sure that the status quo that existed previously is kept like that, and agree to have cameras put up there. So we're bending over backwards. Now, this newest ruling will be brought up and appealed in the Supreme Court. So the proof will have to be put on the table, and the judges in the end will rule whether it's legal for Israel to ban the northern branch or not.
No, and this is exactly the point, that the reason for this whole issue to be rising yet again. Netanyahu has declared many years ago that he wants to pursue this move and illegalize the northern branch. But what happened in the recent wave of terror was that the Islamic Movement Northern Branch campaign was successful. They succeeded in shaking Israel's honest intentions of not changing the status quo on Temple Mount. And Netanyahu himself was asked by world leaders to say it again, that he's committed to the status quo, and this is why we see this move now, because they succeeded in their campaign.
Yes, gentlemen, thank you very much.